If you want your dog to listen every time you give a command, you need a system to both praise and correct them. First, we teach dogs what commands mean by using a lot of praise and being very clear in our expectations. You need to know exactly what you want your dog to do in each situation and then expect them to do it every single time. If you don't expect them to listen every single time, they're going to figure that out very quickly and they're going to walk all over you. Today, I'm going to show you our process for getting your dog to listen every single time you issue a command. Basically, what we're doing is proofing their obedience commands. All proofing means is teaching your dog to listen regardless of the level of distraction. When a dog is fairly new to obedience training, we start everything on leash and we work from the heel position. Bruce knows his commands, but I've never worked with him before, so you're going to see a lot of success today, but also some corrections. So first, let me show you what heel looks like. Bruce, heel. So as I tell him heel, Bruce, heel, I expect him ears even with my heel. So what I want, Bruce, heel, heel, is ears even with my heel, and I want Bruce basically focused forward. Anytime he's out of position, Bruce, heel, I'll give a little tug whichever way I need him to go. So if Bruce is ahead of me, I'll give a little tug straight back and tell him heel. And if I lose his attention too much, I'll give a correction. I don't care if he glances at things briefly, but if he starts kind of pulling offline, I'll give a little tug the way I need him to go. On a left turn in front of the dog, I want to be able to basically pivot on a dime and tell him, Bruce, heel, and go back the way I came from. If he does great, I'll praise him. If not, I would just give a little tug, Bruce, heel, to slow him down. So you can see right there a quick little tug. On a right turn, Bruce, heel, come on buddy, heel. I'm going to pat my leg and ask him to come with me. If he comes with, I will praise him. Bruce, heel. Come on, buddy, heel. If he doesn't, I'll give a little tug to get him moving again. Bruce, heel. Come on, buddy, heel. There you go. And you can see even how I hold the leash is important. So I don't want you to wrap up really tightly on the leash like this. The goal is that this collar is never tight. So if you see the chain up like that, it's a problem. The chain should always be down and loose. So anytime you need to, give a little correction and then loosen up again. So now, to start with the sit command, when I ask him to sit, I'm going to say his name first, followed by the word sit. Bruce, sit. Good boy. So you just saw a perfect sit. I said his name as I came to a stop and I told him sit and he did it, so of course I gave him some praise. But let's talk about what to do if he doesn't listen properly. With all of our obedience, we really believe in once a dog knows their commands, no second chances. So I'm not going to beg him to sit. So what I would do, Bruce, heel. If I were to come to a stop and ask him to sit and he ignored me, I'm not going to negotiate, I'm not going to beg him. If I were to tell him, Bruce, sit, and he just stood there and ignored me, all I would do is give a little tug straight up and tell him sit. I'm not going to pull tightly, I'm not going to hold, it would just be a quick little tug as I tell him sit. He's got a little itch, I'll give him a second. And then Bruce, heel. Come on, pal. So now, as we train, timing is important. And when I say timing, I mean your timing. We have to help the dog out. So what I don't want you to do is surprise him. So you've seen a couple pretty good sits from Bruce in a row. I want you to help your dog when you're working with them. So let me show you what I don't want you to do. Bruce, sit. So there he did, but notice he's out of the heel position. So when we ask our dog to sit, we want him sitting right at our side like he was earlier. Here, we could say Bruce messed up, but in reality, I messed up. I didn't give him any time, right? I came to a stop out of nowhere, I surprised him, and out of nowhere I say, Bruce, sit. Of course, he's gonna end up in front of me. If he sits at all, he's doing pretty well because this is outside of the norm. He doesn't know what's expected of him. So I wanna show you now proper timing. As I come to a stop, I'm gonna be talking before I stop. So right now, as I'm walking, I will say, Bruce, sit. And then there, it took a little bit of leash pressure, so now you saw he ignored. I'm going to give him a little tug and tell him sit. So just like that. I ask him to sit. If he does, great. If not, a quick little tug and tell him sit. Bruce, heel. So now we're going to do another. Through time, I would like to use no leash pressure whatsoever. So I would like to be able to let go with my left hand and say, Bruce, sit, and have him stop perfectly. You can see he didn't there. That means he's relying on the leash pressure. Bruce, sit. So there, I'll give a little tug, heel. And now I'm going to go ahead and do another one, heel. Bruce, sit. Good boy, and of course, praise for a job well done. Now, let's move on to sit, stay. So sit, stay is a pretty easy command for a dog in a situation like this. Although we're outside, there's not much happening. So most likely, if he were to break it, it would just be to casually walk off. what I'm gonna do, and of course never drop the leash if you don't trust your dog. I do trust Bruce, even though I didn't work with him. He's well enough trained to know he's not gonna bolt from me. So I'm gonna tell him to stay. Bruce, stay. And I'm gonna say it once and only once. So I'm not gonna repeat it. I'm not gonna make eye contact with him the entire time. I'm gonna expect him to be good. If he makes a mistake, that's okay. So if he were to get up, the first thing I would do is mark that with a no immediately. So if he jumped up, I would say no, and I would turn to him and I would make direct eye contact with him. And I'm gonna use my body language to hopefully stop him. I'm not gonna say no and stand here. So here he got up, no. So there you could see he looked at me right away. And that's the goal. Oh, he was chewing some gum that stuck to the ground there. I told him no, and now I'm going to take him back to where he was and tell him, Bruce, sit, stay. So one tug for sit and one for stay. So the idea is he broke two commands, a sit and a stay. So we got a correction for each one. And I put him right back by the gum, so if he wants to get up and have another chew at it, he can try that. So once again, if he breaks it, first thing we do, mark it with a no. Use some body language here, so don't, like I was saying a moment ago, don't say no and just stare at him or quietly walk to him. Say no, make eye contact as you walk to him, and you want your energy on the dog. And then when you get him, take him right back to where he was and then correct each command he broke. One for sit and one for stay. If he does well, of course, we are going to praise him. Bruce, free. What a good boy. So we use the free command. I told him free, and I praise him for a job well done. Very good, my little buddy. Yes, you're a good boy. All right, so now let's see that with some distractions. So we are back with a squeaky tennis ball. I expect mistakes here. I can't imagine that Bruce is going to be able to hold and resist this. So if I think he's going to make mistakes, I set myself up for success. So I'm not going to take this and throw it that direction, because no. So there I mark it with a no. And now I walk him right back to where he was. Hey, heel. Bruce, sit, stay. One tug for each broken command. Like I was saying, I'm not going to throw this over his head, because if he runs for it, now I'm going to have to chase the dog, and he's probably a little quicker than me. So I'm going to start easy. I want to be in a position that if he breaks it, I can stop him easily. No. So I cut in front. I'll tell him no. Bruce, heel. Hey, heel. Bruce, heel. Come on, buddy, heel. Sit, stay. And now we're going to do it again. We can see he has a lot of interest on this ball. So that one was about the same difficulty as last time. I need to, work until I get success. So that went well. So now I'm going to make it a little bit harder. No, Bruce. So I tell him no right away. Hey, heel. Bruce, heel. Bruce, sit. So now, sit, you can see he's crooked because he's focused on where that ball was. What I'll do is just kind of nudge here, just to get him facing forward in the heel position. Stay. No, Bruce. So now, Bruce, sit. If he were to stay in position, stay. I wouldn't have to take him back anywhere. So if he immediately sat back down, I would still give the corrections, but I would just tell him sit and stay in position. Now, the hardness of your tugs depends both on your dog and on what they did wrong. Some dogs are very timid. You need a much softer voice for them, and of course a softer correction. Some dogs are a little bit more stubborn and need a harder correction. It also depends on what he does. So if I tell him no, and he looks up at me and his ears go back a little bit and he stops, that's going to be a much softer correction than if I told him no and he bolted, right? Bolting is dangerous. It's incredibly dangerous for the dog, so I want them to learn very quickly they can never get away with that. So there, the reason I don't repeat the command is I sure thought he was going to make a mistake right there. It looked like he was going to get up. I wanted to tell him stay, but I gave him that chance to mess up, and he did well. So his level of focus on the ball is not a problem. It's great that he's interested in it. I just want to make sure that when he's no, Bruce. So that right there is why we tell him no. And hopefully you notice as soon as he heard no in his name, Bruce, heel, he stopped. That's great, of course. Bruce, heel. So now I'm going to give those corrections. Bruce, hey, sit, hey, stay. And we're going to go ahead and do that again. But I love the fact that he heard his name, he stopped, and he cared. So that time he did great. My goal is to be able to pick up the leash here without him getting up. And when he's done well, tell him, Bruce, free. That's a good boy. Look at you. So now we're going to move on to the down command. Bruce knows down, but I've actually never asked it of him, so I don't know what to expect here. What I do expect, though, of course, is that when I say down, he lays down immediately at my side, basically facing forward. Hopefully he can do that, but if he doesn't, you'll see the correction process. So now I'm going to tell him, Bruce, down, and I give a nice point straight down. He ignored me, so I'm going to tell him down with a little tug. He's on my foot, so I'm just going to nudge him off a little bit, and I'm not going to praise there because he didn't listen right away. He knows the command better than that. He's just not in tune with me yet. Bruce, heel. So now we're going to do that again. Heel. Bruce, sit. Nice, sit. So there he was about to sit and then he chose not to, so I gave a little tug. Again, I'm going to tell him, Bruce, down. Okay, down. So he thought about it, but he didn't go all the way down, so I just gave a little tug down. Important here to never pull the dog, so you'll never see me. Some trainers kind of step on the leash to pull them down, or they'll put constant pressure on the leash. I don't believe in that whatsoever. It's a quick tug. It's not to force him into position. It's to tell him, hey, you messed up. It catches his attention and reminds him of what he's supposed to do. Bruce, heel. So now we're going to do this again. Heel. There's a boy. Heel. Bruce, sit. Bruce, down. So there he's halfway down. I'm going to tell him down with a little tug. And I also see he's got this habit of laying into me. It might look really cute. Trust me, with a full-grown Rottweiler, that's not going to be cute if he's going into your leg like this each time. So what I'll do is I'm going to kind of nudge his butt out a little bit. And then I'm just going to shape and kind of correct here and show him this is what this is what I'm going for. And if this takes a few tries, that's okay. Bruce, heel. So there's no magic number right now for how quickly he should do it, because it's just dependent on how he's feeling and his level of training. Bruce, sit. Sit. So there he got a little tug for sit because he was leading me and wasn't stopping quickly. Bruce, down. So that was better. He's went down, so I'm going to praise him. He's into me a little bit, not as much as earlier, but you can still kind of give this little push. And the idea is we don't want him getting comfortable with the idea of laying down and being against my leg the entire time. So I just gently nudged him away. We often get asked how much time is acceptable for the dog, like how much time do they have to listen? And I'll usually tell someone, you'll know. Does it feel awkward, like you're just standing there staring at the dog? You've issued the command, and you are kind of looking around like, is he ever going to do it? That's too long. So probably a couple seconds, so it could be 1,000, 2, 1,000, and if he hasn't done it, then use your correction. But also know your dog. If you have a 10-year-old Mastiff and they do everything slow, well, then I'm going to allow him to lay down a lot slower. If you have a 8-month-old Jack Russell who operates at 100 every single second, and you tell him down and he's looking over his shoulder at a squirrel, I'm going to correct instantly because he's not paying attention. So it really depends on the dog. Bruce, heel. Good boy. Good boy, buddy. So now we're going to go ahead and do another down. Bruce, sit. Sit. And we can see when I come this way, the reason he's not sitting as nicely is because his owner's behind the camera, so he's excited to get to her. And you just have to know your dog and know what makes them tick. So sometimes a dog will walk one direction and they're perfect, and they don't do well the other direction. Maybe they want to go home and it's that way, or maybe they want to go to the park and it's that way. So you can figure that stuff out pretty quickly, and of course he likes walking to his owner. Bruce, down. So he stopped to itch. Bruce, down. When that happens, I'm just going to give a little tug. He was sitting there and he wasn't itchy until he heard a command. So if I tell him down and all of a sudden they're itchy, I'm still going to correct. Bruce, heel. And this once again goes back to know your dog. If your dog never ever itches and every once a year they do it when you issue the down command, it's not a problem, of course. Bruce, sit. But if they have a habit of itching every single time you say down, you know that's an issue. Bruce, down. That's a good boy. There you go. Good. So as I ask him to down, notice I'm giving a point because we have never worked together before. So through time, I'm going to get rid of that point. We've got a skid steer backing up over there. I don't know if you can hear that if it's distracting, but that's perfect. We're in public. We need him to listen in public, of course. But there, I gave that point. Through time, I'll phase it out. So right now, I'm telling him down like that. After a day of working with him, I might be doing this. And then after another couple days, I'm doing this. And after another few days, I'm just saying his name and saying down. The goal is right now we make it easy on him. And then as he gets better, we have higher and higher expectations. So now let's talk about the down stay command. Bruce, stay. Very similar to sit stay. So I say stay once and only once and expect him to do it. And now I want you to think through what my correction might be. So let's think back to sit stay. If he breaks it, I tell him no immediately. I walk him back to where he was, and then one tug for sit and one for stay. To us, the down stay is just one more command. I asked him to sit, down, and then stay. So if he were to break this, I would immediately mark it with a no. I would take him back to where he was, and then you would just see me tell him sit with a tug up, down with a tug down, and stay to the side. So just 3 quick tugs, just like that, and I would walk off and try it again. So he's doing well. Generally, down stay is going to be easier than a sit stay if your dog is proficient at down. And the reason is it's just harder for them to get up. It takes a lot more effort. So now we're gonna work, a lot of distractions in the background here, but now we're gonna work with the ball again. I expect this to go better than the sit stay, and thank you. Maybe he'll prove me wrong, we'll see. But generally speaking, all things being equal, the down stay is going to be better because it just takes a lot more effort for him to get up. So once he's done well at that, we can make it a little bit harder. Since he corrected himself, I don't know if I was blocking the view or not, he went to sit up and he stopped on his own before I said anything, so I'm not gonna correct that. I'm gonna make it harder. I'm gonna throw it over him. Anytime, until you've kind of internalized all of this, until you understand it really well, think about what you're gonna do before you do it. So if I throw this over his head and he jumps up, I'll mark it with a no immediately. Hopefully he stops. If he doesn't, I'll go get him. I'll take him back to where he was, and then I'll give all 3 of those corrections. And he did perfect. I don't care that he thought about biting it there. If he could have snatched that out of the air without getting up, more power to him. That's absolutely fine. So when he's in a downstay, I don't expect him to be a robot. I don't care that he's looking at this. I don't care that he wants it. If I rolled it past him and he could snatch it real quick and grab it, that's absolutely fine. We're not looking to get rid of his interest in the ball. All we want is that when he's in this command, he's willing to wait until we tell him that he's free. Bruce, free. There you go, pal. And of course, he can have the ball. We're gonna keep working on the downstay for a minute. I would love for you to see what a correction looks like. So I'm gonna keep making this harder until hopefully he makes a little mistake. But he is being the goodest boy right now. So I'm thinking he is not going to break one. So let's just talk one more time what that would look like. If he broke it, I would mark it with a no, walk him right back to where he was, and then you would see 3 tugs. Sit, down, stay. Now, a question we get sometimes here is, what if he doesn't listen to those corrections? If you need more than one, that's fine. So if you told him sit with a tug, and then down with a tug, and he ignored you because he was focused on the ball or something else, it might look like this. You might have to tell him sit, down, and they ignore you, and then again, down. And if he ignores you, even a 3rd down until he finally does, and then a tug for stay. If your dog's not proficient at down, then of course you shouldn't be working on the down stay yet. All right, on to the last and hardest command, come. So we're gonna start on leash right now. On leash is usually pretty easy, but of course the goal is your dog will listen off leash in every situation. I'm gonna show you a lot of on leash stuff today. I'm gonna show you the corrections, but we have other videos as well that could be helpful to you. So when I call him, I'm always gonna use his name first, and then I'm going to say come. So when he's 3 feet away, it might not seem needed, but picture he's racing around the backyard. If I say, maybe you have 2 or 3 dogs. So if I say come, and then Bruce, he might tune into the word Bruce and then think, hey, what do you need from me? So I always want the opposite. I want Bruce, and then the word come. So he hears his name, and then the word come. As soon as he gets up, I praise him, and the phrase I use is I praise him all the way in. I don't care whether he's 3 feet away or 300. As soon as he starts coming, I praise. I tell him, good boy, there's my guy, whatever. It can be nonsense, just happy nonsense, right? Just praise him all the way in. When he gets to me, I'm gonna ask him to sit when he gets there. Once he's done that, once he's finished the command, then I will praise him. So that's what come looks like. Let's talk through the correction. I've never told him to come before, and once again, he knows this is a command. To be clear, this is not a fresh dog who's never been trained before. He knows it, but he's never done it with me. So let's say I tell him come, and he just ignores me. He just sits right there and looks at me. You would see me say no immediately, and I would go get him. When I get there, I would grab my leash, and I would back up, and I would correct him. So we'll hopefully see this in a moment, but if he ignored me, I would then back up, and I would tell him come, come, sit. So one tug for come, another one for come, and then a third one for sit. I'm going to start on leash because my goal is this is easy for him, hopefully. So now I'm going to get to the end of the leash. I'm not going to reel him in like a fish. I'm going to talk to him, and I'm going to praise him in. Bruce, come. Good boy, little buddy. Good. Sit. Good. So that was pretty darn good. There you go. He's a little bit distracted by his owner over there, and that's okay. Good boy. Bruce, heel. You probably noticed I backed up, Bruce, heel, as I was calling him. That motion just helps kind of get his attention on me. Through time, Bruce, heel, I don't want to have to do that, and through time I won't have to do that. But since that's the first time I called him, backing up helps a lot just to get his attention more on me. Bruce, sit. Good boy. Stay. I'm going to go ahead and call him again. Same deal. I'm going to say his name. With come, I'm going to back up and I'm going to praise him. You can choke up on the leash. Nothing wrong with that, but just don't drag him to you. I'll show you what I mean. Bruce, come. Good boy. You can kind of choke up a little bit. Good. Sit. So now, this time he got to me and he sat, but look how crooked he is. He's focused that way. I'm going to do something to get his attention on me. You have a couple options. You could push his butt out and turn him, so it could look like this, and just kind of gently turn him. This can be very awkward, so some people have trouble doing that, but that's certainly one option. Another would be, if he was crooked like this, you can take the collar and just kind of tell him, hey, Bruce, come, and just kind of turn him this way. You don't want to be fighting with him on this, so you're just trying to get him to turn his body to face you. And if all else fails, you can just kind of reset. So what I mean by that is, if you told him come and all of a sudden he's like this, facing completely the other direction, he's no longer in front of you, you could just say, hey, Bruce, come, and even use a hand to stop him, and then have him sit. So there's a lot of ways to achieve this, but point being, when he finishes the come command, he needs to be facing you, not thinking about the dog back there, not turn this way to see the skid steer over there. I want him generally facing me. We can see right now he's directed a little bit to his owner. This goes back to knowing your dog and knowing, what they're doing. I would be a lot more worried about this if he was staring down a squirrel right now. Looking at his owner is not such a big deal, but if he's too crooked, I will just turn him, and then I will praise him, for finishing the command. Good boy, and then we'll do it again. You ready, buddy? Heel. Okay, so going back to the beginning of the video, I mentioned that we expect perfection. So I expect perfection in the sense of that's what I'm striving for, but I know I'm not going to get it today, right? That'd be pretty unreasonable to think Bruce would be absolutely perfect for me on day one, but it doesn't mean I can't try. So that's what I want out of you. When you're training your dog, try to get perfection, and through time you will, but we have to have high expectations, also knowing that they're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. Bruce, sit. Stay. We're back by that gum, and he's intrigued by it. So now this time I'm going to call him without holding the leash. Same exact rules apply. You just might see the correction this time because this is a heck of a lot harder, and he might stop at that gum on the way to give it a little chew. Bruce, come. Come on, little buddy. So here he ignored me. I'll tell him no. And now I'm going to grab my leash. I'm going to back up and tell him, Bruce, sit, sit. I'm sorry, come, sit. I was distracted there laughing about what's going on in the background and also him going back for the gum. So, own your mistakes and recognize it. When there's a lot going on, you're going to make mistakes, and that's okay. The goal is you catch yourself and you fix it the next time. But we're going to try that again. Bruce, sit. Stay. So you can see he's already looking at that gum, thinking about it. Must be his favorite flavor. Bruce, come on, little buddy. So here he ignored again. I'll tell him no. And now I'm going to tell him come, sit. And we can see a little bit crooked, so I'm just going to turn that butt and get him to look at me for a moment, and then heel. We're going to try that again. He gets a lot of praise if he does it well, and he's not going to get a lot of praise if he messes up, of course. Bruce, sit. Stay. So, like I said, I've never worked with him before. I can always go back a step and say, hey, maybe dropping the leash is too much right now, so let's go back a step and try to get some success. So I'm going to use the leash in my hand. Bruce, come. Good boy. There you go. Good. Sit. So now we've got pretty crooked sit. He's focused that way. If you notice, it also took a little pressure on the leash to get him moving. So that wasn't a great example of what come should look like, but that is a great example of what you're going to encounter during the training process. Hey, heel. Bruce, sit. Good boy. Stay. So now I'm going to hopefully get a good one here. Bruce, come. Good boy, little buddy. There you go. Good. Bruce, sit. So they're pretty good. I'm definitely going to praise that one. I'm just going to correct and get what I want and get him sitting facing me. Good boy. Heel. And we're going to do that again. So this is just a numbers game. Doesn't matter how many tries it takes. Bruce, sit. Here I'm just going to fix that sloppy sit a little bit and kind of nudge him off of me. And if he were to lay down here, I would just reset and get him back to the sit position. Stay. I'm going to try another one off leash, or with the leash dropped, and see if he can do it. Bruce, come. Good boy. There you go, buddy. Bruce, sit. Good. So if you noticed that time, before I called him, I gave a little whistle just to catch his attention. I'm trying to make this easy on him because I want success. I gave him a lot of praise and I kind of backed up a little bit. I'm just trying to make it easy so I can praise him for a job well done. So now, let's talk a little bit more about mistakes and what to do. There's only a few options that he could do. So now, Bruce, sit. Good boy. Down. So here he ignored the down. I'm going to tell him down with a little tug. Stay. So now, when we call the dog, there's only a few options. He could come to me, and then I praise the heck out of him, and that's great. Another option is he could ignore me completely. Now, in real life, you're probably not calling your dog from a downstay. This is a teaching thing, but once we get past this, we work on come when they're free. But for right now, he could ignore me completely. So all I would do there is that correction I talked about earlier. I would tell him no. I'd go all the way to him. I'd pick up my leash, and I would tell him come, come, sit. It's also very likely that he's going to do something else, right? He's either going to walk or run away. So picture he's just already free in the yard walking around. If we're doing that, we'll probably have a short tab on him, and it's just a short little leash like this. So if he was wandering around and I told him come and he ignored me, I would tell him no. But let's say he did something besides just lay there. Let's say he ran off. So maybe he plays catch me if you can and does some loops. Maybe he just goes to the back door, or if you're in the house, maybe he runs upstairs. Doesn't really matter. The second he proves he's not listening to you, tell him no. Go to him wherever he is, but now forget about where he started and forget about where you started. So when he doesn't listen to come, he didn't break a stay, right? I'm not taking him back to the spot. Stay is about the spot. Come is about me. Come is about you as the owner, right? So if you call the dog to you and he runs all the way upstairs, go up there and get him. So you would tell him no. You'd march upstairs, follow him to wherever it is he's gone. When you get there, if there was a leash on, grab that. If they have a short training lead, grab that. If it's just their cloth collar, that's fine too. Wherever you get them is where you'd correct them. And then you would back up and tell them, come, come, sit. And then you would tell them free, and you would do it again. That's an important part of this. You have to work until you have some measure of success. So we see a lot of clients where the dogs don't like to come in from the backyard. So the client says, you know, Ralph, come, and the dog doesn't listen. So they tell him no. They go out there, they find Ralph, they get him, they might tell him, come, come, sit. And then they walk inside and they think, hey, I did it. And what I'll tell them is you did part of it, right? You corrected the one time he didn't listen, and that's great, and you did your correction perfectly. But did Ralph ever listen in the backyard? And the answer is no, he didn't, right? So what I'd much rather see you do is give that correction, that come, come, sit, and then tell him free. And just kick him loose again, right? Let him run through the yard and do his thing. And 10 seconds later, call him again. And however many tries it takes you, it doesn't matter. Work until you have some success. You want to get to the point to where he finally did listen in that moment, and you can praise him for a job well done, and he gets used to listening right then. If you're working in something too hard and you're having only failure, think back to what I did with Bruce here. I struggled for his name for a second. Think back to what I did with Bruce here. I called him a couple times and the leash dropped and it didn't go well. So I made it easier. I picked up the leash. I thought this is too hard for him. We've never done it before. So I used the leash, got a couple of good ones in that way, and then I dropped the leash. So if you're having to correct your dog 5, 6, 7, 8 times in a row, that's probably an issue. And that means what you're working on might be too hard. Take a step back, get some success, and then make it harder again. The key to all of this is to be 100% consistent. So those corrections you saw today, notice they weren't harsh, they weren't scary, they weren't mean. So the corrections alone are not enough for your dog to listen every single time. they also have to know they're not going to get away with not listening. So your dog needs to know every single time they break a command, every single time they ignore you, you're going to go get them and make them listen to the command. And they figure out pretty quickly they have two options. If they don't listen, they get a little correction and they have to do it. Or if they do listen, they get a lot of praise. It's a pretty easy decision. So once they figure out you're consistent, they're going to be great. You just have to have a knowledge of what you expect of them, be consistent in your expectations every time, follow through every single time, and they're going to do well. Thanks for watching, and have fun training your dog.